Now let's take you back to last October in Pakistan. The teenage education campaigner Malala Yousafzai was shot by Taliban extremists. She survived and said God had given her a second chance. Her shooting, though, brought the challenges facing education in Pakistan firmly into focus. But a twin challenge is how to provide a good enough level of education to a population that continues to grow. In a little more than 60 years, Pakistan's population has increased almost fivefold. It's now one of the most densely populated countries in the world. In 1950, 3 years after the end of British rule, there were 47 people for every square kilometre in Pakistan. Move forward 30 years and that number has more than doubled. Move on again, another 30 years and the number has more than doubled again, with 218 people per square kilometre. Well, the UN predicts that numbers will continue to rise to a peak of 357 people in 2060, almost 8 times more than in 1950. Well, to discuss this, Mohsin Saeed Khan is a health system specialist based in Islamabad. I'm pleased to say he joins us. And also Seema Aziz, founder and head of CARE, Pakistan's largest educational charity. Welcome to both of you. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Seema, let me begin with you. From my understanding, you have a view that education and population are intrinsically linked. Specifically then, when we look at Pakistan, just explain to us what the state of the education system is like there today.
Well, that's multiple questions, so I'll take the first one. It's, I think there's enough data around the world to show that literacy numbers and population growth rate has a direct correlation. Wherever around the world, in South Asia and other parts of the world, countries have been able to make an appreciable difference in their population growth rates. It has always been together with heightened or increased literacy rates. So I think that there's an absolute correlation between the two. And the state of education in Pakistan is, we have huge numbers of children out of school. As we know, the UN declared that Pakistan has the largest out-of-school children in the world, about maybe 9 million children out of school today in Pakistan. So the school system, the problem is that, one, there are not enough schools. The condition of public schools is such that the enrollment rates at age 5 are nearly 90% of the country's children do enroll in schools, but the dropout rate in the first 10 years is about 80% children drop out, and that's because of the quality of education and the quality of schools that are there.
Yeah, well, let's look at the issue of population with Dr. Saeed, because, Mohsin, I understand, I mean, well, let's firstly establish whether or not you believe that there is an issue, there is a problem that Pakistan needs to face regarding a rising out-of-control population.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the population is a big issue in Pakistan, and the population growth rate has really outnumbered the resources that are available, and it has directly impacted the social fabric of this country. Irrespective of the social sectors we look at, education or health or water supply, sanitation, etc., it has made a big difference. And the amount of resources that the government or the development partners are putting into Pakistan are becoming meager and meager every day. And it has directly impacted, for example, the education, as Seema has pointed out. But even if I must just take a second to say that it directly affects the health as well. There are 15,000 women who die of pregnancy-related issues every year in Pakistan, and over 95% of them are illiterate. And we have seen a direct correlation where educated females have made a significant impact on the social indicators in any country, even in the surroundings. Take an example of Sri Lanka, for example, where over 95% of the women are educated, and in terms of health, they have one of the best health indicators in the world.
Sure.
But within Pakistan, I would like...
Forgive me for interrupting. I mean, you've raised a number of interesting points there. Firstly, to pick up on what you call the meagre investment, I presume, by the Pakistan government for education. I mean, I'm sure, Seema, you would agree that there is a case for a better need, a concerted effort in terms of provisions for education to tackle the population issues that Mohsin described there. But how do you do that? How does Pakistan do that?
Well, he's right. Our budget, our spending on education is very low. But that really isn't the issue. There's many myths which are out there, which government and I hear international media saying all the time, that the people in Pakistan don't want to educate their children, that they don't send their girls to be educated. They'd rather send them into the workforce. And those are all myths that I've been working in education in Pakistan for the last 24 years. We have, CARE Foundation is the largest educational NGO. We're today educating over 160,000 children in 240 schools across Pakistan. And I've found in all my work in education, one, that it's a myth that people don't want to educate their girls. We run co-educational schools in the villages of Pakistan and have done so for the last 22 years.
Sure, but would you not agree, though, that there is perhaps an issue that Pakistan is perhaps with its social, cultural issues and also with the religious issues that they're having to grapple with on a daily basis, that perhaps, like the challenges that Malala Yousafzai face, that women's rights and the education, whether they be sex education, the use of contraception in Pakistan, all these issues do actually play to create a problem, which is why we're looking at rising population there.
You're right, you know, and yet not, because I've found the condition on the ground totally different. If we've been running co-educational schools, English medium, in the villages of Pakistan for the last 23 years and no one has ever protested. You know, our largest village school has 2,000 girls and boys in classes 1 to 10. And children walk 2 to 3 miles, 2 to 3 hours to our schools. And we've got multiple such schools with 160,000 children. And I've found wherever we've opened schools, and these children then excel. So the biggest problem is really not that people don't want to send their children to school. The problem is that the schools don't exist. You know, I know I've seen, of course, heard the story of Malala, but on the same side, there are I think that's a rare one-off incident.
And you know, I'm fascinated to hear you say that. I mean,
Yes.
I'm wondering, Dr. Saeed, if you agree with that, as Seema was just saying, these are myths. And actually, you know, when it comes to girls' education, for example, they want to send their girls to school in Pakistan, but the schools aren't there in the first place. I mean, would you agree with those myths?
Yeah, the myths are always correct, irrespective of from where they come. But when we look at Pakistani statistics, we have seen improvement. For example, in the 1970s, the female to male ratio enrollment in education sector in Pakistan was 40%. 40 years later, it has increased to 80%. But so that's one issue. But our major issue that we are coming across here is within the whole population structure is the youth, whereby about 32% of them are completely illiterate. And that, when we have illiteracy, we have issues of being out of job. They have no opportunities. More or less, it's like not a poverty of income, it becomes a poverty of opportunity for youth, which is either literate or illiterate as well. And that has directly impacted even our crime rate, which has increased by about 13.7% over the last 4 years. I'll just give you another example. I'll just give you one more example, that only last year, the amount of cars that were lifted in Pakistan because of this crime costed about 20 billion rupees. Now, that is horrendous. That is too much for a country to bear economically. But when it comes to, as what Seema said, yes, I do agree with her. There are issues of myths, there are issues and there are challenges. But whenever there is a change, there is always a resistance. But I believe that...
Sure, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off there because we've really run out of time. I'm so sorry. And I know, Seema, you wanted to come in there, but I'm sure this debate is going to continue. There are so many different aspects of it that we haven't addressed, but many that we have. So Dr. Mohsin Saeed Khan and Seema Aziz, thank you to you both. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do stay with us on BBC World News.